I thought my brother hated me because I wasn't good enough. Turns out, he hated me because I was everything he'd never be. My name is Caroline, and for 28 years, I believed I was the family disappointment. My older brother, Marcus, made sure of it. Every family dinner, every holiday gathering, every single phone call with our parents, he'd find a way to remind everyone that I was the screw-up. The one who dropped out of law school. The one who couldn't hold down a real job. The one who wasted her potential. I stopped going to family events 3 years ago. It was easier than sitting there while Marcus talked about his corner office, his stock portfolio, his perfect wife Amanda, and their perfect life in their perfect suburban palace. Meanwhile, I was working as a freelance graphic designer out of my tiny apartment, barely scraping by. At least, that's what everyone thought. The truth? I'd been building something. Something big. But I kept it quiet because I'd learned a long time ago that sharing my dreams with my family was like handing Marcus ammunition. Everything changed 6 months ago when I got engaged to Daniel. He's a software engineer, kind, supportive, everything Marcus wasn't. When I called my parents to tell them, my mother cried happy tears. My father actually said he was proud of me. For about 10 minutes, I felt like I belonged. Then Marcus got on the phone. "So you finally found someone desperate enough," he said, his voice dripping with that familiar condescension. "What's he like? Does he know about your student loans? Your failed business attempts? Does he know he's marrying a professional disappointment?" I hung up. Daniel held me while I cried. He'd heard the stories, but hearing it firsthand was different. "You don't need his approval," Daniel whispered. "You don't need any of theirs." But part of me still wanted it. Part of me still wanted to prove I wasn't worthless. 2 months before the wedding, my mother called. She wanted to have lunch, just the two of us. I agreed, hoping maybe we could rebuild something. We met at a cafe near her house, and for the first 20 minutes, it was actually nice. She asked about the wedding plans, seemed genuinely interested. Then she said, "Your father and I want to help with the venue. We know money's been tight for you." I should have been grateful. Instead, I felt that old familiar shame creeping up my spine. "We can afford it," I said quietly. "Daniel and I have been saving." My mother smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Sweetheart, we know you're doing your best. But Marcus mentioned you're probably looking at something small. Modest. We don't want you to feel embarrassed." "Marcus mentioned? What does Marcus have to do with my wedding?" She shifted in her seat. "He's just concerned. He thinks maybe you're in over your head. He suggested we have the reception at his country club. He could pull some strings, get you a discount." I felt my chest tighten. Of course. Of course Marcus was already inserting himself into this. "Tell Marcus thanks, but no thanks. Daniel and I have everything under control." My mother's face fell. "Caroline, please don't be stubborn. We're just trying to help. Marcus is being generous. Marcus is being controlling." I stood up, grabbing my purse. "I'll send you the wedding invitation. You'll see we're doing just fine." I left before she could respond. In my car, I called Daniel, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. "He's doing it again," I said. "He's trying to make me look incompetent." "Then prove him wrong," Daniel said. "Show up to that wedding in a way he never expected." That night, I made a decision. I was going to send my family the wedding invitation, but I wasn't going to explain anything. I was going to let them assume whatever they wanted. And then, on the day itself, they'd see the truth. 3 weeks later, the invitations went out. Elegant cardstock, calligraphy addressing, the works. I'd designed them myself. The venue location was listed at the bottom, the Ashford Estate, overlooking the Blue Ridge Mountains. My mother called within hours. "Caroline, I looked up this venue. There must be a mistake. This place costs." "It's not a mistake, Mom. But how can you possibly?" "We've got it covered. I'll see you there." I hung up before she could press further. 2 days later, Marcus called. I let it go to voicemail. "Caroline, it's your brother. Listen, Mom told me about this venue you picked. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but you need to be realistic. That place is $40,000 minimum. You're going to embarrass yourself when you can't pay. Call me back. Let me help you fix this before it's too late. I saved the voicemail. I wanted to remember his exact words. The week before the wedding, my parents asked if they could visit the venue. I told them to wait until the day itself. I could hear the doubt in my mother's voice, the concern that I was in denial about my financial situation. Marcus, apparently, had told them I was having a breakdown and living in a fantasy world. Let them think that. Let them all think that. The morning of the wedding arrived clear and perfect. Daniel and I got to the venue early. The Ashford estate sat on 200 acres of pristine mountain landscape, with gardens that looked like they belonged in a fairy tale. The main house was a restored 1920s mansion with soaring ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the valley. It was the most beautiful place I'd ever seen. It was also mine. As in, I owned it. Not just for the wedding. I owned the entire property. My guests started arriving around 4. I watched from an upstairs window as cars pulled up the long driveway, people stepping out and staring up at the estate with wide eyes. My college friends, Daniel's family, our coworkers, all of them looked appropriately impressed. Then I saw my parents' car. My father drove, my mother in the passenger seat. Marcus and Amanda followed in their black BMW. I watched Marcus step out, looking up at the house with a smirk. Even from this distance, I could read his expression, confusion mixed with condescension. He probably thought I'd rented the front lawn for photos and was having the actual reception in some barn out back. My mother looked nervous. My father looked uncomfortable. Amanda just looked bored. The ceremony was perfect. Daniel and I exchanged vows in the garden, surrounded by white roses and mountain laurel. I saw my mother crying, and for a moment, I thought maybe it was genuine happiness. But then I caught her whispering to my father, probably wondering how much debt I'd gone into for all this. Marcus sat in the third row, arms crossed, watching everything with that infuriating analytical stare. The reception was held in the mansion's grand ballroom. 200 guests, live band, catering from a James Beard-nominated chef. I'd spared no expense, not because I needed to prove anything, but because Daniel and I deserved this. We'd worked for it. I watched Marcus looking around, doing mental calculations. I could see him trying to figure out the math, trying to understand how his failure of a sister could possibly afford this. After dinner, before the dancing started, I stood up. Daniel squeezed my hand, knowing what was coming. I want to thank everyone for being here, I said into the microphone. The room quieted. This place is really special to me. Not just because I'm getting married here, but because it represents something I've been building for the last 5 years. I saw my mother's confused face. My father leaning forward. Most of you know I left law school. What you might not know is that I left because I realized I didn't want to practice law. I wanted to build something creative. I started freelancing as a graphic designer, which, honestly, sounded like a disaster to my family. A few people laughed. Marcus's face remained stone. But through that freelancing, I met clients in real estate development. I learned about property investment. I started small, buying a duplex, then a small apartment building. I saved everything, reinvested everything. And 3 years ago, I found this place. I gestured around the ballroom. The Ashford estate was abandoned, falling apart, in foreclosure. I bought it for a fraction of what it was worth. I spent the last 3 years renovating it, restoring it, turning it into what you see now. This isn't just our wedding venue. This is my business. We host weddings, corporate retreats, special events. We're booked solid for the next 18 months. The room erupted in applause. People stood up. Daniel was beaming. But I was looking at Marcus. His face had gone pale. Amanda was whispering urgently in his ear. My mother had her hand over her mouth. My father just stared. I wanted to thank my family for being here, I continued, my voice steady. Especially my brother, Marcus. You always told me I was worthless. That I'd never amount to anything. That I was a disappointment. The room went silent. I saw some guests shifting uncomfortably. I kept that with me. I kept every insult, every condescending comment, every time you made me feel small. And you know what? It motivated me. Every time I wanted to give up, I remembered your voice telling me I couldn't do it. And I worked harder. Marcus stood up. Caroline, this isn't appropriate. Sit down, Marcus. My voice was calm but firm. He sat. This estate is worth $3.2 million. I know because I had it appraised last month. After renovations and investments, my equity is just over $1.8 million. The business grossed $400,000 last year, and we're projected to double that this year. I pulled out a folder I'd hidden under my chair. I brought some paperwork to show Mom and Dad, since I know Marcus has been telling you I'm delusional. I walked over to their table, my heels clicking on the hardwood floor. I placed the folder in front of my father. That's the deed. Property appraisal. Business license. Last year's tax returns. Profit and loss statements. I wanted you to see that your daughter isn't a screw-up. I'm actually doing pretty well. My father opened the folder with shaking hands. My mother leaned over his shoulder, her eyes scanning the documents. I watched her face change as she read, the reality settling in. Marcus stood again. This is ridiculous. You're making a scene. No, Marcus. You made a scene. You made a scene every family dinner, every holiday, every time you talked down to me. I'm just correcting the record. You're being childish, he snapped. So you got lucky with some property investment. That doesn't erase your failures. I didn't get lucky. I worked. Every single day for 5 years, I worked my ass off while you told everyone I was worthless. While you convinced Mom and Dad I needed their pity. Amanda tugged on Marcus's sleeve, trying to get him to sit back down. But he was unraveling now, the control slipping. You think you're better than me now? Because you have some wedding venue. I don't think I'm better than you, Marcus. I just know I'm not less than you. And I'm done pretending I am to make you feel superior. The room was electric with tension. Some guests looked uncomfortable, but Daniel's family was nodding. My college friends were watching Marcus with open disdain. My father finally spoke. Marcus, sit down. His voice was quiet but stern. Marcus looked at him, shocked. Our father never took sides. Never. Sit down. Marcus sat, his jaw clenched so tight I thought he'd crack a tooth. My father looked at me, and for the first time in years, I saw something in his eyes that looked like respect. Caroline, I owe you an apology. We all do. My mother was crying now, real tears, not the performative kind. I'm sorry, she whispered. We should have listened. We should have believed in you. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak without crying. I don't need an apology, I said finally. I just need you to see me. Really see me. Not the version Marcus has been showing you. I looked at my brother. And Marcus, I need you to understand something. Your approval was never the finish line. Your opinion of me was never the truth. It was just noise. And I'm done listening to it. Marcus said nothing. He just stared at the table, his face red. I walked back to the head table, took Daniel's hand, and smiled at our guests. Okay, enough family therapy. Let's dance. The band started playing and the mood shifted. People flooded the dance floor. My friends hugged me, congratulated me. Daniel's mother told me she'd never been more proud to welcome someone into their family. But I kept watching my parents' table. My mother was reading through the folder, tears streaming down her face. My father had his head in his hands. And Marcus just sat there, frozen, while Amanda whispered urgently in his ear. Around 11, as the party was winding down, my father approached me on the terrace. The mountain air was cool, stars scattered across the sky like diamonds. Your mother and I would like to talk to you tomorrow, he said. If you're willing. I'm willing. He nodded, started to walk away, then turned back. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. I should have said it a long time ago. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thanks, Dad. He left, and I stood alone for a moment, looking out at the estate I'd built. My estate. My business. My life. Daniel found me a few minutes later, wrapping his arms around me from behind. You okay? Yeah, I'm actually really okay. That was the most badass thing I've ever witnessed. I laughed. Was it too much? It was perfect. He needed to hear it. They all did. We stood there in comfortable silence, watching the last guests filter out. I didn't see Marcus leave. He and Amanda slipped out sometime before midnight without saying goodbye. I heard from my mother later that he barely spoke the entire drive home. The next day, my parents came to the estate for brunch. Just the three of us, sitting in the sunroom overlooking the gardens. It was awkward at first, all of us dancing around the elephant in the room. Finally, my mother spoke. We failed you. As parents, we failed you. Mom. No, let me finish. We let Marcus control the narrative. We let him convince us that your choices were mistakes instead of asking you about your plans. We compared you to him constantly, and that wasn't fair. You're not Marcus. You never should have had to be. My father nodded. We got so caught up in his success that we couldn't see yours. Different doesn't mean wrong. We should have known that. I took a breath, feeling years of tension start to release. I needed to hear that. I needed to know you could see me as something other than a disappointment. You were never a disappointment, my father said firmly. Never. We were just too blind to see what you were building. We talked for hours. Really talked, maybe for the first time in years. I told them about the struggles, the late nights, the times I almost gave up. I told them about finding this property, seeing its potential, taking the biggest risk of my life. My mother cried more than once. My father kept shaking his head, like he couldn't believe what he'd missed. What about Marcus? I finally asked. My parents exchanged a look. Your brother called us 4 times last night, my mother said. He's angry. Embarrassed. He thinks you humiliated him on purpose. I didn't do it to humiliate him. I did it to free myself. We know that, my father said. He doesn't. Not yet. But we're going to have a conversation with him. We've enabled his behavior for too long. I didn't know what to say to that. Part of me wanted to feel bad for Marcus, but I couldn't. Not after everything. 3 weeks after the wedding, I got an email from Marcus. Caroline, I've been thinking about what happened. I owe you a real apology. Can we meet? I showed it to Daniel. He frowned. Do you want to see him? I don't know. Part of me wants closure. You don't owe him anything. I knew that. But I also knew I'd wonder forever if I didn't at least hear what he had to say. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our cities. Marcus was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table, looking older than I remembered. Tired. Thanks for coming, he said as I sat down. I'm not staying long. Fair enough. He took a breath. I owed you an apology 3 years ago. I owe you a bigger one now. I stayed quiet, letting him continue. I've spent the last month in therapy. Talking about you, about us, about why I treated you the way I did. He looked down at his coffee. Turns out I've got some serious issues with control and inadequacy. You? Inadequate? Marcus, you're successful by every measure. That's the problem. I followed the script perfectly. Law school, corporate job, perfect wife, perfect house. I did everything right and I still felt empty. Then I'd see you, doing your own thing, not caring about the script, and it drove me insane. He looked up at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before, genuine vulnerability. You were free. You always have been. And I resented you for it because I was trapped in this life I built to impress people I don't even like. I didn't know what to say. This wasn't the Marcus I knew. That doesn't excuse what I did, he continued. How I treated you is cruel. I spent years tearing you down because it made me feel better about my own life. And I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. I felt tears threatening, but I pushed them back. Why now? Why apologize now? Because seeing you at that wedding, seeing what you built, it broke something in me. I realized I'd wasted years being jealous of you instead of being proud of you. You're my sister. I should have been your biggest supporter. Instead, I was your biggest obstacle. You were. I know. And I can't take it back. But I can do better. If you'll let me. I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation. But all I saw was exhaustion and regret. I'm not ready to trust you, I said finally. I'm not ready to let you back into my life like nothing happened. I understand. But I'm willing to try. Slowly. With boundaries. And the moment you slip back into old patterns, I'm done. Forever. He nodded. That's more than I deserve. Thank you. We talked for another hour. He asked about the business, and for the first time, he asked real questions. Not judgmental ones. Real, genuine curiosity. When we parted ways, there were no grand gestures. Just a tentative understanding. A willingness to try. Over the next few months, Marcus surprised me. He sent me articles he thought I'd find interesting. He asked about Daniel, about the business, about my life. He stopped offering unsolicited advice. He started actually listening. We had dinner once a month, always in public, always with clear time limits. Slowly, I started to see glimpses of someone different. Someone trying. Today, the Ashford estate is thriving. We're booked 2 years out. I've hired a staff of 15. Daniel and I are talking about starting a family. Life is full and rich and mine. I see my parents regularly now. Real relationships, not performative ones. Marcus and I are rebuilding something, piece by careful piece. It's not perfect, but it's honest. Sometimes I think about that wedding day, standing in front of everyone and speaking my truth. People told me I was brave, but I didn't feel brave. I felt tired. Tired of being small to make someone else feel big. The property documents are framed in my office now. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder. A reminder that my worth was never up for debate. That I didn't need anyone's permission to be successful. That the only voice that mattered was my own. My brother called me worthless for years. And for years, a part of me believed him. But then I built something beautiful. Something mine. Something undeniable. And when he finally saw it, saw what I'd created with my own hands and my own vision, he realized what I'd known all along. I was never worthless. I was just waiting for the right moment to prove it. Not to him. To myself.